Hey there, Dr. Ruth Roberts back. Hopefully this will work, and I apologize for the movement, but as I was starting to say earlier, the bandwidth is limited, and so I have to go very close to the actual modem, which strangely is in the bedroom here. So there's a couple of things we're going to talk about today. I hope you're having a great day. I'm just astonished. Our little Facebook group is up to 95 people almost overnight. And that is really, really awesome. So thank you all for joining us, and I hope that I am able to give you quite a bit of useful information. And hopefully what this means is that we will have some good conversation. So Susie, good to see you. At any rate, there's a lot of things I can talk with you about today, but one of the things that we were going to talk about is, hey Monty, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you, Kathy. Sorry you got stuck in LA. I kind of wondered if that might be happening. So at any rate, here's what I was going to talk with you about today, and that is pet health and mobility. And there's several videos I've done about this, several blog posts, things of that nature. I'm going to pop the link to this one in the comments down here, but I kind of go through here why there's various reasons for mobility issues in pets and kind of how to start addressing them. The other thing I want you to be cognizant of is that mobility is a massive problem from the standpoint not only of can you get up and move around, but also how well can you think? And this is a strange connection to make, but it's turning out to be the case in science. How well can you think? How well does your immune system function? How well does your liver process stuff? How well does your gut function? So it turns out we were not meant to sit on our butts, and our dogs and cats were not meant to sit on the sofa day in and day out. And so it is very important to keep them moving. So hence the little video of MJ and Pepe. You know, if you've been following me for a while, and I'll play this again, Pepe is 12, and he still plays with wadded up pieces of paper. And MJ is 61, and she still plays with wadded up pieces of paper too. But I gotta say, she is in really good health. And not a lot of people look as good as she does at 61. And I'm not just being, proprietary is not the right word, but the right one's not coming to me today. See, I've been sitting on my butt too long today. But here's the deal with dogs and cats. If they sit on the sofa all the time and they don't move, several things start to happen. One is gut function declines because the body is dependent on movement to keep the intestines moving and help move contents through the system. Improved gut function means improved detoxification and improved neurotransmitter production because the gut bugs stay happy because stuff is moving through quickly and it's not sitting there and fermenting and creating evil spirits that are killing off the good guys, so to speak. So as it turns out, this is bearing out in the human literature, and finally in the veterinary literature we're starting to catch up a little bit. So I talked yesterday about things you can do to help improve your pet's mobility, and this is what I wanted to talk a little bit more about today, is why that's so important. Not only from the standpoint of immune function, all of these things. So it turns out that mobility is absolutely crucial in maintaining all of these other massively important items. And that's what I wanted to talk, So that's what I wanted to talk to you about, is how can you keep your pet mobile? That's what we talked about yesterday, and today is why. So improving neurotransmitter production, cognitive function, GI function, immune function, you name it. So one of the things I left out yesterday that are really quite important is maintaining muscle mass. And so when we talk about home cooking or raw diet or whatever it is that works best for your pets, and all of a sudden you get this diagnosis of kidney failure. I talked to my friend Mary Doan in New Hampshire yesterday. I've been consulting with her for a while. And her vet calls her up and says, oh, your dog has kidney failure. And she's like, oh God, she has been through this many, many, many times before. As far as she ran a rescue for many years, and so she knows all about kidney failure. So she said, oh God, that's just awful. Send me the numbers. Well, the vet sends her the numbers, and her pup's creatinine is 2.2 at 10 to 12 years of age. So to give you some frame of reference, creatinine, top end of normal for dogs is something like 1.8 or 1.9. 2.2 is not kidney failure. And I am astonished at the number of veterinarians that continue to tell their clients their pets are in kidney failure, and in some cases hospitalize pets to put them on IV fluids. Guys, this is stage 2 IRIS, International Renal Interest Society, kidney disease. Kidney failure does not happen until stage 4, when the creatinine is 6 or higher. Actually, I think 5 is the number that they use these days. So frustrating. So here's Mary, scared to death about the trajectory that she's going to go down with this dog, and she gets these numbers and she's like, what the heck? Why did he tell me this? And all I can say is, I don't know. I really don't know, and I don't understand why veterinarians are freaking you all out. And then they tell you, well, the only thing we can do is give you the prescription bag of food and just wait till it gets worse. So that's also part of why you're here. So what I'm going to tell you is feeding that bag of prescription food with low protein to an aged pet is an outstanding way to encourage muscle loss so that their arthritic joints become more unstable. And I'm saying this tongue-in-cheek. I hope you're getting the sarcasm in my voice. But there is so much that is considered to be standard of care that actually ends up hurting pets, and even more for cats. So this is why I constantly tell my clients, until your pet's phosphorus level cannot be controlled in any other way if they have kidney disease, I don't recommend reducing protein, because in the process of doing this, we decrease muscle mass, we make them more unstable, we decrease their mobility, and we set them up for all these other things to happen. Cognitive dysfunction, immune dysfunction, IBS, all this other junk that we just don't want to go to. So that's why I'm trying to give you these tools, so that when your veterinarian tells you something and your bullshit meter, for lack of a better descriptor, goes off, you're probably right. Because you are the pet mama, you are the pet daddy, and you're looking at your pet and you're like, but I just brought him in for routine blood work. How can he be in kidney failure? So, and I will tell you, that's, it's so frustrating. So Susan's asking, why do they push these prescription foods? And Susan, I'm going to tell you why. Because we are indoctrinated by the pet food companies in veterinary school. They give us free food, and I think they still do this. I was in veterinary school over 30 years ago, but this is the way it works. They literally wrote the textbook on small animal nutrition, and they indoctrinate us into what we should feed pets. And they scare the heck out of us about feeding real food or table scraps, and then we scare the heck out of you about doing any of that. And so my learning curve on this was perfect. Many of you know the story. I had a dog, Nepenthe, which means the removal of sorrow in Greek, interestingly, and the river Nepenthe is what takes you to the underworld. She she was a piece of work. She did not want a lot of, like, she was having no part of acupuncture. And, but she did think home cooking was a good idea. So this dog developed bacterial endocarditis, which is an infection on your heart valve, which is often fatal to dogs and people for that matter. And so I took her down with me to a class to Chi Institute, and this is back in '05, I think. And so they taught me how to, yeah, right on, Susan. But they taught me how to home cook. They gave me some basic ideas of what to do for her. And over 3 months, I watched my dog's lesion disappear on ultrasound from, I am not kidding you, half a centimeter, 1 centimeter in diameter down to 3 millimeters, which is about the width of a piece of paper. So I thought, oh, wow. All I did was change how I was feeding this dog and give her herbs. And I did give the Western antibiotics and all those other things. But that had only kind of brought her so far. So I thought, okay, I got to start talking to my clients about this. And I got to tell you, the first client I talked to, I was scared to death because I was going to tell them something absolutely heretical. This is like the Spanish Inquisition was going to arrive at my door and accost me for telling my client to feed real food. That was my level of fear with this thing. And then an amazing thing happened. I started talking more and more about it, and I had this very, very, very basic early version of the Crockpet Diet. And in about 2 months, not only was I starting to see my patients get better, but the first pet food recall hit in 2006. And many of you know how horrible and devastating that was. And every week, there was a new food that had been recalled. And then, lo and behold, we found out that actually all the canned food was made at this one plant in Kansas. And that's why all of the canned foods got recalled. People were coming in off the streets to grab copies of this recipe because they didn't know what else to do. But they figured if I was saying to do this, that probably it was a good idea. And it was just astonishing. But this is the thing, this is how much fear I had in taking that first step, and after that I never turned back. So that's why that's why my colleagues push this stuff, because they have been trained to sell through fear, and that's what they're doing. They're selling you the bag of food. They have been trained to speak to you by intimidating you and making you fearful about what will happen to your pet if you don't do this. Instead of saying, here's the options. These are the things that I can offer you. Here's what I think is best for your pet Fluffy. Here's the other things I can offer you that may not be in Fluffy's best interest. Instead of having that conversation with you up front, they just tell you, man, this is what you got to do, and this is why, blah, 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 blah. And it is so frustrating. And I think that's what's breaking my heart about veterinary medicine right now, to see my profession that I started out in, and I'm rambling and I apologize, but when I started out in veterinary medicine in 1990 as a brand new graduate, we were the 6th most respected profession in the United States of America. And I think that we have dropped down to something like 52 or below. So there you go. And Susan, that's how we got introduced. So there's a bunch of folks around South Carolina still using a very old recipe, but it still works, and it's a lot better than most of the other stuff out there. All right, that's enough rambling. So what I was trying to get at is that if you don't keep moving, bad things happen. So my father-in-law, Frank, Mary Jo's father, was an amazing man. He lived to be 94. He is Sicilian. He is an internist. He had diabetes, and the way he managed his diabetes was when he ate too many cookies, he gave himself more insulin. He retired and did some desk work for the local medical board, and basically sat in front of the television for the rest of his life. Now contrast that with his brother Tommy, who played golf, still walks every day, and is now, he was 2 years younger, so he is now 94, and he is still cranking it out. This man can walk. He went to Europe with his children last summer before all this COVID madness happened. Now granted, they're both Sicilian and they're genetic freaks, but this is these are two brothers side by side. Tommy's health is excellent. He had one cervical disc he had to have surgery for, and this is where we are. This very same concept applies to our dogs and cats. If we do everything, we feed them right, we keep them moving, we help keep their stress down through meditation in ourselves and being present with them, we do so much good for them. So that's my little soapbox. You guys have heard me say this. Many of you have heard me say this many, many times, but it is the honest truth. So there are some questions I can answer for you all. Donna was asking about a good pet food for her Yorkie because she's losing all her teeth and she can't eat anything hard. And she's feeding her Caesars. And Caesars is, Donna, this is the thing. In this time, you have to do the very best you can at that moment. And with hopefully the grocery stores are filling back up, although I hear that Tyson's chicken farm had to take out a full-page ad saying they're having to shut down many of their plants due to the virus. So Caesars is not a good food. It's like eating pizza. How about that? So in and of itself, the ingredients aren't bad, but just eating that high processed carb diet all the time, not so great. So what I would look at is the original Crockpet Diet. And if you are not familiar with it, I'm going to pop that in. That is my own creation. And this is what I was just talking about, is the original Crockpet Diet. It's come quite some ways in the last several years, and we now have recipes for bean-free, keto versions, all sorts of good stuff. And then I'll put the link to that in there as well. So Donna, check that out. That has been enough to really radically change how pets are doing, and with very little input. So check it out. It's really easy to make. I've got pictures of us making it over a wood stove on in a camping bus, so that was pretty trippy. So Laura's saying, howdy, I'm new, and Laura, welcome, glad to see you, and we'll see you elsewhere, but she's asking about bone broth. And if you're not familiar with bone broth, it's one of those things that's being touted as like the end-all be-all. And it does have some really good components in terms of it provides minerals, it provides, in Chinese medicine, the bone marrow is considered to be jing or essence. And so by making bone broth, you are adding in jing or essence to what your pet's eating. And that helps to improve its lifespan. So jing or essence is kind of, think about it as the candle of life we're given. And as you burn through life, the only way to help yourself live longer is, Kathy, I'll get back, I think I warbled on a little bit about that. But at any rate, so the only way to get back more essence is to eat really, really well. So bone broth is one of those things that I think can help with that. And it's very, very simple. You take something like a pound of stew bones, ideally cut up so that the marrow is exposed, and you cover them with water, and you add a tablespoon or so of apple cider vinegar and put them on a low simmer for 24 hours. And off to the races you go. The goal is to extract out the minerals from the bone. Vinegar helps to break down the bone structure to let those minerals out. So I think that's a great thing to use. The one thing I do have concern with about it is that you do want to make sure you're getting organic bones, because bones store heavy metals, so things like mercury, lead, cadmium, things of that nature. And so we're leaching that out with the minerals. And the other thing you may consider, I've also seen this create more histamine release in dogs that are already sensitized. So try it and see how it does. A lot of people, especially for older pets, I think that that's a great way to help start to rebuild some of the collagen. Because especially if you're buying knuckle bones or if you're using chicken bones, that's a great way to extract the glucosamine and chondroitin from them. So check that out. The other thing you can do is just make a broth or a stock. And the difference between bone broth and a stock or a chicken broth or beef broth is simply the time that you've been cooking the bones. And often for culinary purposes for us, we're going to add things like onion, celery. Dogs don't care so much, cats don't care so much, but you're going to cook a stock or a broth for maybe 2 to 4 hours on a simmer versus 24 hours or more for a bone broth. So I hope that helps answer that question. Let's see, Wendy is giving us an update about her pup Rudy, and the inner left eyelid's covering about half of his eye, which is an improvement. It was kind of all the way up to start with. And so started Thursday, got better Friday, and then regressed later. And since Saturday, it's been slightly better in the morning and gets a bit worse during the day. And top eyelid's functioning fine. Both ears and both sides of his mouth look the same, so no drooping or anything of that nature. So this is improvement, and what she's dealing with likely is a form of Bell's palsy. Now, the thing that she's asking about is naltrexone, which I spelled incorrectly. And really what I mean is low-dose naltrexone. And for those of you that are not familiar with it, naltrexone is something that is used to treat narcotic overdoses. And low-dose naltrexone is very interesting because it's working on the opioid receptors and probably the endocannabinoid receptors as well. And we've seen that it can make a difference in cancer, in autoimmune disease, and several other situations which can be difficult to treat. And I would say roughly 30% of the time it's effective. It is a prescription product, so Wendy, you would need to ask your veterinarian to call it into a compounding pharmacy. And in Canada, to be honest, I don't know if this is available or not available. So I hope that is helpful to you. But frankly, if you're continuing to see improvement in how Rudy's eye looks on a regular basis, I think you're in good shape there. Now, Kathy was saying, did she miss the discussion about arthritis? And Kathy, probably, but I have an idea that the video got all banged up. And thankfully, the broadcasting is now behaving properly. So what I would suggest doing, Kathy, is take a look at the video yesterday in the Facebook group. And what I do is go through several options to help improve mobility, to treat the pain essentially that pets experience with arthritis. And what I was talking about today is more of what happens when you start to lose mobility, what are the other effects in the body. So that's what I have. I'm going to pop over to the Facebook group and make sure there's no other questions that have popped up. And Wagon Splash, glad to hear they're still in operation, Chris. Let's see, and Bernadette, we talked about your pup yesterday. I think that's pretty much it. So we've got 2 more days, Wednesday and Thursday left. And what we're going to do, since this has been such a bizarre show, as far as video stability, is I'm going to put a post in the Facebook group that says who wants the gut health program, the Gut Instincts, Natural Digestion and Healing. and we'll let you guys stick your hands up, and then we'll pick one of you at random and go from there. So I will be back tomorrow, and I'm going to tell you a little story about Biscuit, who was one of my patients. And you may have heard me tell this story in the past, but I think it really is remarkable, and really it made me think a lot about, what is disease, and what are we, and looking at these animals and figuring out what they're telling us when they have that stuff going on. So many thanks to you all for showing up. I apologize about the rambling about my early days and the origins of the Crockpet Diet, but thanks for bearing with me. Again, I will kind of try to paste the little segments together for you and make one consistent video and pop that up on YouTube, and then I'll put the link over in the Facebook group. So tomorrow at 4, we'll talk about a patient named Biscuit. So 4 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Eastern. See you then. Thanks.